11:05 by my own time, so I will go ahead starting the presentation. Others will be joining us. I want to believe everybody is seeing my slide. So the topic of the section is the place of geomechanics in mitigating wellbore instability while drilling. Please forgive me, my attention will be getting divided because I have to be checking on people who are in the waiting room and be admitting them in every now and then. But I will see how I'm going to manage that so that it doesn't disturb the flow of the presentation. My name is Odofin David, like I think we all know. Okay, I will be starting with the value moment for this presentation. My value moment for this presentation is what John Maxwell, one of the authors I love reading so much, calls the law of five. He said, practicing the rule of five. What does it mean by the rule of five? The image you have there have a tree that has been cut down. And he said, if we have a tree, if my objective is to fall this tree, if I go there and all I do on daily basis, if I go there and I strike that tree 5 times with a sharp knife, a sharp cutlass, and all I do is I strike it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I go back to bed to sleep. I return there to do the same the next day. He said, after a long while, what will happen is that I will fall the tree. What is this trying to say in essence? The law of five, practicing the law of five simply says you should be intentional. I can't strike the tree on this particular spot today and tomorrow I'm striking on another spot. I will never fall the tree. If I strike the tree today and I leave it for 6 months before coming back to it again, the tree will have healed up. So I'm starting the cycle all over again. So the law of five said you should be consistent and you should be intentional about your vision, about your goal. He said if you do this, all goals are achievable. All target goals and visions will become a reality. Okay, thank you. That will be my value moment for today. Let me go to the first slide. Okay. Above is the outline of the presentation, starting from the introduction of the subject to question and answer. Let me try and admit those that are coming in. Okay. What do we mean when we are talking about geomechanics? I won't just assume this is YP, this is not geology. So I won't assume everybody knows what we mean by geo. When we talk about geo, we are talking about earth. And when you are not talking about mechanics, you are talking about motions and the forces producing that motion. So bringing it into geomechanics, what we are talking about is how our subsurface rock get deformed as a result of the combined effect of changes in stress, pressure, and temperature. We want to, in the field of geomechanics, our basic line of interest is we want to know how our rock responds to change in stress, pressure, and temperature. And I want to limit the field of geomechanics that we are looking at into drilling, oil well drilling. Geomechanics is a very broad subject.
Hello, David.
Sir.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please go ahead. I can hear you.
Please, can you put the presentation can you put the slide in presentation mode?
Okay.
One. And please, can you make me a proposal so that I can help you people that are coming in?
Okay, I should make you a provost, right?
Yeah, that would be nice so that you can admit people. So that
people do online too.
Yeah.
Let me try and look for you.
Yes, please, so that I can help you.
And also admit people. You could also help you admit other people.
Okay, I've done that.
Sadiq.
I've done that. Okay, so are we good now? Hello?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, this is better, yes. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right. I said I want to limit the feed of geomechanics that we are looking at into the oil wells, which is our focus for today. Geomechanics cuts across several different other feeds, but we'll be looking about the effect of the changes in rock stress, temperature, and pressure on our oil wells. And when we are talking about geomechanics is made up of 3 basic elements. If you like, you can call it 4. You are talking about your pore pressure. And when we are talking about pore pressure, your pore pressure can be normal, can be under pressure, you can be having over pressure. The scenario that the peculiar problem that we have in Niger Delta is over pressure. It's either your formation, your feed, your basin is normally pressured, which we'll be glad to have, but that is not usually the case. Or if it is over pressure. Normal pressure as a result of subsidence and other things, uplift and other things is not common in Niger Delta. Then the other elements of geomechanics. Can you please mute your phone? Okay, the other element of geomechanics is rock strength. The strength of the rock itself, the properties of the rock that you are drilling through. And the third thing is the in situ stresses. You are talking about your vertical stress, which some people call overburden stress, your maximum horizontal stress, and the minimum horizontal stress, the magnitude. Then the orientation of the minimum and the maximum horizontal stress also matters when we are looking at the field of geomechanics. As a way of explaining geomechanics to people, how the change in stress, pressure affects or deforms our rock. What I like to a picture I like to paint to people is this. Imagine if you are in how do I put it? If you are in a stadium and everybody is standing shoulder to shoulder, like a political gathering, a political rally, and everybody is standing shoulder to shoulder to each other, and all of a sudden, one of the people standing shoulder to shoulder is removed off. There's likelihood that the 2 people to a side, whether to the right or to the left, or the people at the back or at the front, the 2 of them will lose their balance. This is the kind of distortion that we have when we are dealing with oil wells. The formation that you are drilling into are interlocked into each other. The formation is having grain-to-grain contact with one another. We now go into it to bore a hole. As we are boring this hole into our earth formation, is similar to what happens. when one of the people that are standing shoulder to shoulder in a stadium or in a political rally listening to a presentation, when one of them is removed and they will stagger and lose their balance. That is what happens when we are boring a hole into the subsurface. So this, to combat the effect of this, is part of the reason why we have our mud in place. That is part of the usefulness of our mud. That is part of the reason why we use mud to drill through the subsurface. So the topic, like I earlier introduced, said the place of geomechanics in helping us to mitigate wellbore instability. When we are talking about wellbore instability, you are talking about how your rock now responds to the stress. Some people call it hoop stress. Like I said, when we drill through the subsurface, when we bore a hole into the subsurface, we end up, there will be hoop stress around the circumference of the wellbore. The response of the rock to your drilling activity will either cause instability of the hole. This wellbore instability problem has been estimated to be accounting for a whooping sum of 1.5 is known or to be associated with wellbore instability. So what we are looking at now is we are trying to look at, okay, how can we use geomechanics to stop this waste of 1.5, approximately 1.5 billion USD that the industry is losing per day, every year, on yearly basis. How can we use geomechanics to stop this problem? That is what me and you want to discuss today. All right, applications of geomechanics. I like to start from the right-hand side. Application of geomechanics cut across almost the entire lifespan of the assets, from exploration to abandonment. Okay, if you come to, okay, let me see if I can bring my pointer on so that you can follow me. Okay, fantastic. Okay, here we have what they call subsidence. We have subsidence, and subsidence occur when you now have undercompacted formation. When you have soft rocks that are undercompacted, over time, as a result of several activities, human, natural activities, compaction takes place. Imagine you have drilled this well. This is a vertical well. You have cased the hole and you are producing it already. But over time, compaction took place. Then you have subsidence. When you have subsidence, what will likely happen is what we are seeing at this end of the well. You have casing deformation. The casing of the hole of the well may bend, or you may have shearing of the casing. It may burst, and you don't want that one to happen. You can lose the well, or you may have to be. Are we together now? Can you hear me? Okay. I noticed my network went off. So that is why I'm trying to get a confirmation that you can still hear me. Okay. Going back to my explanation, I said when you have compaction and subsidence, you can have casing deformation, and that may result into walkover operation, and that is money. You don't want that to happen. Geomechanics can help you resolve this. Adequate knowledge of geomechanics before or while you are doing the completion will help resolve this. Another thing we want to look at, which is another importance of geomechanics, is sand production. The objective of every well is production of hydrocarbon, not sand, not water. We want to limit the production of this as possible. If your well starts producing sand, the erosion of sand through the tubing of the production tubing can cause leakages in the tubing, can cause corrosion and all that, and you don't want that. Apart from that, this can disposing the sand, because when you start producing sand, there are environmental laws guiding the disposition of this sand. So you can't just dispose it off anyhow you like. That costs money also. So the understanding of geomechanics, understanding the strength of the rock, the elastic property of the rock, will help you know at what rate you can produce this well optimally without producing sand. And if you are producing sand, completion guys will tell you the kind of completion that you can do to help combat the effect. But at all, in all of these cases, you want to produce this well optimally. You want to know if you didn't put the right completion in place. With geomechanics, you will know ahead of the time. Okay, I just got an hint that my slide is not showing. Let me just try and get out of the presentation mode so that I can reshare the slide again. I don't, maybe the time the network went off, the slide also went off with it. Okay, are we good now? Okay, let me get my pointer so that we can fire down. Please note that after 40 minutes, Zoom will knock off the meeting. Zoom will end the meeting at probably around 11:40. If that happens, kindly rejoin the meeting with the same link immediately. Oh, Zoom just notified me that the 40-minute limit has been removed for this particular presentation. Fantastic. So we can continue. All right. Now coming to the key objective of this presentation, which is how we can mitigate or limit the effect of wellbore instability while drilling infill wells. While drilling, one of the things that the knowledge of adequate knowledge of geomechanics will do for us is this. We have a good knowledge of pore pressure. I told you earlier that for those that joined early enough that pore pressure is one of the key arms of geomechanics. Geomechanics is made up of three things: pore pressure, the rock strength and properties, and the last is the in situ stress. It will give you adequate knowledge of the pressure regime, and understanding of the pressure regime will help you to drill the well successfully without a kick or blowout. The knowledge of geomechanics will help you to avoid loss in circulation. You don't want to increase, it will help give you the knowledge of your fracture gradient, the minimum stress required to fracture the formation. And when we have the knowledge of the fracture gradient, we can avoid getting to the fracture gradient so that we don't have losses, we don't have well ballooning and all that. I'll still go into further details about that. The knowledge of geomechanics will help you kick against wellbore instability. It will help you in your reservoir management, fault seal, and all that. Okay, let me just read through the 2 lines I have here. I've discovered I spent so much time on this slide and I have other slides to deal with. I said reducing NPT, non-production time. This costs huge amount to the industry, and this example of our workers NPT is stock pipes. When you have stock pipes, you do fishing. Sometimes after several fishing, you can't fish your BHA. You have to terminate that hole, have a sidetrack, kick, well ballooning, lost circulation. I think I've done justice to this slide. I can go to the next slide. Okay. I have mentioned this, that the entire geomechanics cut across the entire life of the asset, from exploration, pore pressure, appraisal, development, where you can be talking about well stability, sand production, compaction, casing shear, subsidence, until your abandonment. You're talking about depletion, I mean, probably subsidence. I won't waste time on this again. I've handled this in why dealing with the last slide. Okay. The relationship between our mud, well stability, and various rock properties. I'm having a pop-up of the meeting blocking my view. So, okay. If you see from your mud weight, if your mud weight, low mud weight to high mud weight, the effect of it on our hole, what will this do to our hole? It's saying that if you have a low mud weight, that means you are drilling with a mud, most likely, yes, lower than your formation pressure, which is the pressure you are predicting during your geomechanical modeling. This is what will happen. You have splitting of shades, you have washouts, or enlargement in general. The second scenario is when you have your mud weight up to your pore pressure, but less than your shear failure gradient. The shear failure gradient is the gradient at which your formation will shear. You have breaking of the formation. Okay, when you have your mud weight less than your shear failure gradient, you have washout. You may not be having splintering shades. I have in the next slide, I have an example of some of the cuttings to explain some of these terminologies. So don't bother yourself. I call it geomechanics jargons. But knows that when we are drilling, we want to drill with a mud weight not just higher than the pore pressure, but higher than the shear failure gradient. Drilling with the mud weight higher than the shear failure gradient, but less than the fracture gradient. That is the where we have our grain line. Okay. Sadiq, can you please go ahead? I can see your hand up. Let me just quickly check the status of Sadiq and see what is the issue. Hello? Sadiq is not talking to me. Okay. I'll be waiting for, I'll continue with the presentation while I'm waiting for Sadiq's comment. In between your shear failure gradient and your fracture gradient is what we'll call safe mud window. I'm trying to check what Sadiq have for me. Okay, sorry for the breaking presentation. If you have your mud weight stationed between your fracture gradient and your shear failure gradient, you have an engaged hole. Your hole will be almost 90% the same size as your drill bit. This is what we want to achieve. This is usually the objective of every drilling operation. But the first one, the other four are the common experience. So how can we use geomechanics to ensure that at every point in time, our mud weight is stationed in between shear failure gradient and the fracture gradient? That is what we are trying to communicate. Okay. What happened when we have our fracture, our mud weight greater than the fracture gradient, but less than the tensile failure strength of the formation? You begin to have seepages, you begin to have losses, small losses. It's already showing us that we're already fracturing this formation, but we are not yet at the tensile strength of the rock. Let me quickly add this to it, that you may be drilling through faults, pre-existing fractures can give us. A minute, please. Let me just quickly attend to Sadiq. I can't. Okay, I'm good now. Hello. So are we together? Sorry for the break again. Is to make the presentation good. He's trying to give me some technical support. All right. I was saying that drilling through pre-existing fracture can be difficult. So we don't want to, as much as possible, we don't want to even drill close to the fracture gradient. But from your knowledge of geomechanics, you will have seen all these highlighted issues ahead of the drilling activity, and your drilling program, you will have planned for this. Okay, the last of the scenario is when you are not drilling with your mud weight higher than the tensile failure. I'm sure no drilling manager want to experience this. But if we don't have the understanding of what our tensile failure, the tensile strength of the rock is, then we may find ourselves in this okra soup, a very hot one. We will have lost circulation, and when we have lost circulation, most likely followed up with a kick. Causes of wellbore instability. What are the things that result into wellbore instability? It can be grouped into two. One, mechanical. I've talked so much about mechanical causes of wellbore stability. One of the mechanical causes of wellbore instability is even the vibration of your drill bit or your drilling assemblages itself. Your drill string, as it's going in and out of hole, is hitting the wall of the wellbore. This can result into some of the cuttings, the cavings that is coming out of hole. So when we are adding some of these cavings as a geomechanics person, we want to be sure that the cuttings that we are having, the cavings that we are having, are not as a result of the impact of the drilling assemblage itself. Another thing that we can have, like I explained, is when your mud weight is lower than the shear failure gradient, the hoop stress around the wellbore will be so low, it will not be able to keep the formation in place. So it begins to fall off. That's mechanical impact. Chemical effects, chemical cause of wellbore instability. You talk about the capillary pressure. As you are drilling, circulating your mud into it, it's causing a capillary pressure on the wellbore. Everything centers, everything we are discussing centers around what happens as we are drilling the well. We want to balance the capillary pressure around the well. That is one. We want to ensure that, okay, the capillary effect is accounted for, and this basically it have more to do with the chemical effect, have more to do with our mud engineers. When we, as the geomechanics person, tell them the rock strength, the rock properties, they put that into account while they are modeling what kind of mud will be most suitable to drill to the formation. They think about osmosis, they think about how the effect of the change in the concentration of the fluid, of the water in the mud. This they do by adding electrolyte. You can introduce your seawater so that there will not be osmotic effect whereby the water is moving either ways. If the mud is getting too diluted, then the weight that you are trying to establish in hole, the annulus mud weight that you are trying to achieve will not be easily achieved, and that can jeopardize the whole drilling activity. Then you talk about mud fluid inversion. As mud fluid, there's no way you are, as you are drilling, part of what you use your drilling mud to do is you use it to cement the wall of the wellbore. You are using that to strengthen the wellbore. So, and you don't want the viscosity, an increase in viscosity will help so that there will not be so much invasion. Much invasion of this mud fluid into the wellbore can cause a distortion of the chemical properties of the formation you are drilling through, and this can now result into wellbore instability. So they try to increase their viscosity, they add polymers to it, and this help to strengthen the wellbore. I'll go to the next slide. Accepting people in, man, it's blocking my view. Classification of well instability. They have tried to classify wellbore instability into different sections. We have hole closure or narrowing of the hole. Like I said, if you have adequate mud in place, you achieve, if your mud weight is higher than the shear failure gradient and lower than the fracture gradient, you have an engaged hole almost exact the size of the drill bit. But if you are drilling through a swelling clay, plastic clay, which is the common thing in our oil wells, and your mud is not designed enough to handle the effect of the swelling of the clay, you can have hole closure, either partial or total, making the size, the diameter of the wellbore to be less than the drill bit. And you know when that happens, you drill through it, your drill bit has passed. When you are now backreaming, you now discover that your bit cannot come up again. You have what they call tight hole. Another classification says hole enlargement or washout. In the last slide, we saw a picture of if we are dealing with less mud weight less than the pore pressure, or even when it is less than the shear failure gradient, you can have hole enlargement. Please just give me a minute. I need to attend to Sadiq to get the feedback from him. Sorry again for the breaking presentation. I think where I was is hole enlargement or washout. That if you have your mud weight less than the shear failure gradient, worse when you have it less than the pore pressure, hole enlargement is usually the case. Fracturing occurs when you have your mud weight higher than the fracture gradient, the minimum horizontal stress. Then the fourth category is hole collapse. The associated problem with each of these is this. When you are talking about hole closure, when you're having a tight hole, it will result into increase in torque and drag. The friction energy that result as a result of rotation of your drill bit the energy that will be required to rotate your drill bit will increase. That is what we are talking about when we are talking about torque. And the drag, the energy required to move the bit from one level to another will increase. So when we begin to see increase in torque and drag, is one of the parameters that our mud loggers usually monitor. When we begin to see increase in torque and drag, we begin to suspect hole closure, tight hole. This can result in difficulty in landing the casing. Let's assume you succeeded in drilling the well successfully. You've pulled out of hole, you now want to case. Your casing was designed, the selection of the size of casing to be used is based on the size of hole that you intend drilling. After drilling, if there's swelling of the hole and there's hole closure, landing the casing may become difficult. Another challenge is potential pipe sticking. What we call differential sticking, or you can even get stuck in hole. And when you get stuck, you run into well control issue. You may have to sidetrack the hole or you abandon. Associated problem with hole enlargement. The MWD guys usually don't find it funny or interesting when you have so much enlargement of hole. I'm sure some of us have done basic well log interpretation. While we are interpreting our log, we will have seen gaps in some of their logs. The tool usually will have been set to have contact with the wall of the wellbore before it can take readings. When there's enlargement of the hole, the tool will not be able to have a good contact with the formation. As such, you may be having gaps or spurious data at such intervals. So we don't want this because we want to preserve these informations are important for subsequent drilling. Okay, difficulty in cementing. When you are cementing, they will have calculated the volume of cement slurry that should be pumped into the annulus, the number of strokes that will be pumped that will effectively seal the hole. When you now have washout, it means the volume has increased. How do you now estimate the volume when you don't even know how much washout how much enlargement you now have in hole? And if there's a compromise of cementing job, that can actually lead to kick or completion problem. Okay, and the last thing associated with it is, I'm talking about, okay, hydraulic, increase in the hydraulic effect, why that will be effective for hole cleaning. You are talking about hole cleaning. Like I said, you calculate the number of strokes that will circulate bottoms up, that will circulate the entire cuttings that you have in hole up to the surface, to your shade shaker. If there's hole enlargement, that your calculation is 40. If you are calculated to say 100 strokes of the pump will bring all the cuttings, circulate bottoms up, and you have done 100, not accounting for the enlargement of hole, the 100 will not clean the hole. And when you don't have a clean hole, that begins to give you problem. That's a different drilling scenario on its own. So the effectiveness of our hydraulics becomes challenging. Okay, when you have hole collapse, you're talking about pipe stock and possible loss of the hole. When it's collapsed on you, you may have to now cut off the BHA, cut off from the level after several attempts of fishing. If you are still unsuccessful, you have to cut it off, pay the servicing companies for their bottom hole assemblages, and you now have to sidetrack the well. These are the things that actually accumulated into the 1.5 billion that we earlier mentioned. Okay, associated problem with fracturing. When you fracture the formation, you may run to well ballooning. Well ballooning, you are pumping into hole. At a point, you are not getting circulation. After some period, you are having excess circulation coming out of hole. You may be having gases. Well ballooning is well control issue that nobody wants to experience. But if you mistakenly fracture the formation, then you are in for it, you are in for it. Lost circulation and possible kick. My introduction slide has the image of a kick. Kick is like roasting a suya. That's the basic man of saying it. I usually jokingly say that the work of geomechanics is like an eagle. An eagle goes into the fire when the fire is hot. When every animal is running out of the fire, that is when an eagle is running into it. A geomechanics person is running, is being called upon when they are suspecting that the well is going to be problematic. When they are suspecting that if we don't have you on board to come and tell us the geomechanical properties of the formation, then we may likely end up with a kick or probably a blowout. A kick is uncontrolled influx of hydrocarbon into the wellbore, and if that continues for a while, any ignition of slight ignition will cause fire. So each day I'm going to the rig, I'm saying, God, in your hand I commit my spirit. If I come back, all glory be to your name. So that means I have to do my job well, otherwise I experience a blowout, and who knows if I would not be lucky to be part of the people that will escape. So I have to do my job well so that there will not be kick and no blowout at all. Okay, like I promised, these are examples of cuttings and what that implies to us. The cuttings to my left, I'm having on it, if you are looking at it very well, you see marks like threading. These are showing me the bit mark, where the bit hit the formation that is being cut, the samples that is being cut out of the hole. So I'm saying this one, that all these one, they are having bit mark on them. This is, when I go to the shade shaker and I'm saying this, I'm happy. It's telling me that, okay, nothing is pushing these cuttings out of where they were other than the bit. It's the bit that is cutting it. I'm saying that, okay, my mod in hole is performing well. When I'm seeing this, which is the one at the middle, okay, I think I have a message. Let me just quickly check. A minute, please. Sorry again for the break in transmission. We are trying to make everything good and make the presentation perfect. Okay, I'm trying to get my pointer. Okay, I have my pointer. So the cuttings here at the center, if I'm looking at this kind of cuttings, I'm not seeing any bit mark on it. It suggests to me that something other than the bit brought this out of the formation. That is number one. For those of us who are geologists, we know that when you see something like this with round hedges, it's suggesting to me that this is a rewash sample. While this sample was coming, it was rubbing the wall and was rubbing the drill strings, and those were the things that smoothen the hedges. If I check the sample again, I'm not seeing any sample that is showing me that this sample is from fracture zone. If I'm seeing oxidization on the cuttings, I can begin to suspect that, oh, we are drilling through a fault or a fracture. But this, as far as I'm concerned, they are cavings, and they are suggesting to me that these are not the effect of the drill bit. But like I said, so many things can cause wellbore instability. So many things can cause washouts. And I said the mechanical impact of the drill string itself can result into this type of cuttings. So I keep my eyes on the washout, check other parameters to see that if other parameters are not suggesting underbalance drilling, then I can conclude that, oh, these are mechanical impact cavings, and I can look away because there's nothing I can do. Your drill string will keep vibrating and will have this mechanical impact. When I see something like this, there are some of it, if you look at this particular one where I have my cursor, it has a very sharp edge. Sharp that the way I'm looking at it now, if I want to give some people tribal mark, it's a pity they don't give tribal mark again. If I want to give tribal mark, I can use this to create a tribal mark. We'll call it splintering shale. When I'm beginning to see this, it's suggesting to me that I'm drilling under balance. I'm drilling through an overpressure zone, and my mud weight is not enough. But I don't want to look at cuttings alone. I will go and look at other parameters. If this is suggesting to me that I'm having splintering shales, I want to look at other parameters. What are they telling me? If other parameters are insinuating or suggesting the same thing, then I will have to go and check my model, recalibrate my model, and this is telling us that it is a time to increase our mud weight so that, like I earlier said, we want to maintain our mud weight in between the shear failure gradient and the fracture gradient. That is the safe mud window. We want to keep it as much as possible within the safe mud window. When I see this, I know this is no bit mark on it. This is not the time for me to gist and joke, cast joke with friends. This is the time for me to stay alert, stay awake, and get every feedback from the well. There's a common saying that the well speaks. So we want to get the information that the well is giving, the feedback that the well is giving to us per time. And one of those good feedback is things like this. I can tell you, I don't love seeing splintering shales, but when I see splintering shales, I'm up to my game. It will go back to where it's coming from. Okay. This image is typically suggesting to us what happened while we're having washout. Our washout usually take place. You can see the ditch size here, but you can see that washout is already taking place, and they are showing us that there are pressures lock up in the pore spaces, of the formation. If my mud weight is doing good job, I'm not supposed to be having this hole enlargement. That's what they are trying to say here. But when we're having this kind of hole enlargement, we are beginning to, we won't see this because my drill bit is down there. But all these informations getting back to the surfaces that I'm picking will suggest to me that this is what is happening down there, and I don't want it to happen. Otherwise, I will run into well control issue. The one at the middle is an experiment from the publication of Reka. It tried to mimic the effect of minimum and maximum horizontal stress, as well as a vertical minimum stress. This is the direction of the minimum stress, and this is the direction of the maximum horizontal stress. If we're having maximum, which means that this is the higher horizontal stress, as your hole is supposed to be circular because your drill bit is circular in shape. But because of the stress, as the stress is being mounted, and because our mud in hole is not strong enough to withstand the stress, the maximum horizontal stress, you have this kind of deformation happening to your hole, and you will now be having your washout somewhere here. All this one because you are compressing it from these two sides. As you are compressing it, imagine if you have, what can I use as an example? Maybe if you have a clay material that is circular in shape, and you are applying force from two sides, and as you are applying the forces, the other side with least stress is where your break will normally take place. So you have your washout coming from this direction, the direction of minimum horizontal stress. So when we now have our image log will show us, like we are seeing here, this deep brown is showing me that we're having washouts in this hole. So if you take your image log, your cuttings, and every other parameters that indicate, every other indicators of stability, wellbore stability, if you marry them in together, you'll be able to build a robust model that will help you drill successfully without any stability issue. I want to quickly talk about compaction and subsidence. I mentioned compaction, I mentioned subsidence in one of the preceding slides. Conditions necessary for you to have subsidence. One, your reservoir must be soft. So that is why we try to build the reservoir properties, the raw properties. So when we are beginning from my geomechanical model, if I build a model and I'm seeing that the rock, we have soft rock with high compressibility, I'm beginning to suspect that over time, this may result into further compactions. And when that takes place, I'm at risk of subsidence. That is one. Another factor that needs to be in place is your reservoir must be of relatively or considerably thick reservoir. If 2 feet, if I'm having between 2 and 20 feet compaction, the subsidence will still take place, but you will not notice it anywhere, and it will not damage anything, most likely. So, but when you're having a thick reservoir, some reservoirs can be very juicy, can be as thick as 100 feet, 200 feet. If you're having such reservoir having high compressibility and is thick enough, after so much depletion, large depletion, And if your reservoir is of large area extent, what will likely happen is compaction and subsidence will take place. When you have subsidence taking place, what are the associated problems? Associated problems include the safety of your offshore platform. It's like when you are talking about buildings falling off, when the engineering geology is not well known, and they build a skyscraper on where a bungalow should be built, and because the foundation cannot withstand the load on it, you have a collapse. Your offshore platform, if you have subsidence taking place, maybe at one end of the offshore platform, then you see your platform bending. And when your offshore platform is bending, it can, if it's a production platform, you can break the tubings. It can. If it's a drilling platform, let's say a new drilling platform has been installed and drilling activities is about taking place. After the installation and subsidence is taking place, you may be having you targeting north. Your target may be north, and you'll be finding yourself in the south. That means you may be missing your target depth, and that could have impact on your production. This is not likely the scenario. It usually affects your production platform. Okay, casing collapse. I've explained that in the introductory slide. Then environmental challenge. Where I'm sitting now, I'm precisely in Rivers State. I don't know if there's a particular reservoir, a particular thick reservoir lying below the building where I find myself now. But if they consistently deplete that particular reservoir, and if it's thick enough, and the subsidence is now taking place beneath this house, then it causes problem. Okay, possible solutions. You are talking about, if you account for it, if you build your geomechanical model of accounted for the likelihood of you having compaction and subsidence, then the design of your platform and your casing will have factored that into consideration, so that when it takes place, it will not distort anything on your production. Pressure maintenance. Another solution is for us to do pressure maintenance, water injection. So water injection is not just to enhance productivity, is to help us maintain the pressure in the reservoir so that we don't experience subsidence. Let's go to the next slide. Sources of our geomechanical data. When you are talking about pore pressure, you model your pressure from porosity indicator logs, but you have to calibrate it to measured pressure before, otherwise what you are doing is just academic exercise. So measure pressure, your RFT, DST, MDT, the three means the same. It's just the industry, the company, and the tool, the name of the tool that measures it that differs. Then your pressure wide drilling can give you idea of your formation pressure. Your rock strength. Please note that we are going over the items that constitute your geomechanics. Like I said, your geomechanics is made up of rock pore pressure, your rock strength, and the in situ stresses. So your rock strength, you get that one from your core test, triaxial test on your core, loss and analysis of wellbore failures. These are the things that give us the idea of the rock strength to which any model that you are building is being calibrated with. Then the magnitude of your maximum horizontal stress and the orientation. The orientation of your maximum horizontal stress is usually calibrated in the direction of your fault. You get, apart from the azimuth of your fault, of the major fault, not just any fault, the major band-aid fault will give you the azimuth of your maximum horizontal stress. If you have your 6-arm caliper log information, that also can give you the azimuth of your maximum horizontal log. Or from our image logs, I gave an example of what an image log is in the last slide. From our image log, we can deduce the azimuth of our maximum horizontal stress. The minimum horizontal stress, on the other way around, the magnitude, you can calibrate that to your leak-off test. Usually, it's encouraging to do leak-off test, but you have somewhere that all you have is FIT, formation integrity test. It's not actually your leak-off, it's usually lower than it's saying. We want to test our formation to see if our formation can withstand this so amount of stress. And when they test it and they can withstand it, they say they are okay, that's your FIT. If you don't have LOT, you know your FIT is usually lower than your LOT. So you can use that one to build your model. You know, your objective basically is not to exceed the fracture gradient. So at FIT, you know you are not exceeding the fracture gradient, but the fracture gradient itself is what we measure when we perform an LOT. You have lost circulation, you want to know the amount of stress you have subjected the formation to that resulted into that loss. So from your lost circulation information, at what point did you start having losses, then you can know that, oh, if I drill with less than that, that is the stress, the one that my formation can withstand. That gives you an idea of your minimum horizontal stress. Similar scenario to well ballooning. You start having ballooning before your lost circulation. Vertical stress is computed from your bulk density. Then the fourth and the bedding plane from your image log. All right, a typical geomechanical model looks like this. When I was in one of the previous slides, I talked that you don't want your mud weight, you want to place your mud weight in the safe mud window. And the safe mud window is what is being painted green here. Saying that if you have built your model and you said the interface between your green and your yellow is your fracture gradient, so you don't want to fracture the formation. The interface between this green and the other yellow here is your shear failure gradient. You don't want to go below the shear failure gradient. Otherwise, you begin to have shearing. Then the zone colored red is the interface between red, I think this is purple. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't know color. Okay. The zone, the interface between your red and your purple color is your pore pressure, your formation pressure. Anything below that will result into influx, which we call uncontrolled influx, which we call kick. And that may, after a kick, you may have a blowout if it is not checked. If you are drilling within your yellow zone, you begin to have lost circulation. If you are drilling with your green zones, your safe mud window, you are fine. And you hope everything continue to be green so that you can breathe successfully and come back home alive. Okay, so now I want to just quickly go through how does our formation becomes overpressure, origin of overpressure. Origin of overpressure have been classed into two. One says the primary mechanism, which they call disequilibrium compaction, and the secondary mechanism, according to my mentor, Glimboas, which results into fluid volume expansion. What do we mean by disequilibrium compaction? For those of us whose background is in geology, we understand, we have a quick grasp of what we mean by disequilibrium compaction. What we are saying in simple terms is equilibrium was not attained between sediment supply and compaction. When your sedimentary formation, your sedimentary basin, sedimentary rocks are being formed, what we usually have is you have your sediment being deposited as they are dropping out of suspense. Just my way of explaining this to people is I talked about if you are pouring gari into water, for those of us that love gari very well, as you are pouring gari into water, your gari particles, the grains of your gari will be dropping, and as it's dropping, is expelling the water, is disposing the water because of density contrast. This is usually the scenario when you have compaction taking place. Each grain of your sediment that goes into it press the one underneath and expel and forces the fluid in it to come up. That is the normal compaction process. But what happens when you now have a scenario where there's a rapid rate of deposition, rapid sediment supply, much sediment is going in per time. Let's say the way I'm talking now, probably I'm talking too fast for some, or probably I'm talking too slow for some. Rate of assimilation for some now have been exceeded. During the emplacement of our sedimentary basins, you have the rapid rate of depositions. Our tertiary basins have been characterized with this disequilibrium compaction. During the tertiary age, what geologists call tertiary age, you have rapid deposition sediment supply, such that it did not give room for all the fluid within the pore spaces to be expelled out, resulting into part of this fluid being trapped in the pore spaces. When the fluid is now being trapped, subsequent layers of sediment that is being deposited will exhibit pressure on the fluid that have been trapped. And when this takes place, the fluid in the formation get pressured. And that is what we are talking about when we are talking about disequilibrium compaction. Let me summarize it again. Rapid rate emplacement of low permeability rock at a very rapid rate during the tertiary age result into pore fluid being trapped. And when this pore fluid has been trapped, subsequent layer is like somebody is sitting under. I remember when we were doing Boy Scout in those days, somebody will be down, another person will climb on the shoulder, somebody S will climb on the shoulder of that other person. When you have this taking place, and the person that is down will feel more weight. So our fluid that is being trapped will get pressured as a result of the effect of the weight of the overlying sediment. When our formation is being pressured through this mechanism, we'll call it disequilibrium compaction. And because this is the common scenario, and usually the first thing that happens is seeing depositional is taking place as a deposition is taking place. So we'll call it primary mechanism. The other mechanism of origin of overpressure is expansion of fluid within our pore spaces. Our pore space of the pore space of a sedimentary rock is almost a closed system. What do I mean? I'm saying that the pore space, the fluid trap in the pore space have no means of going out. So it's trapped, So it's almost a closed system. If you now have any scenario, any process resulting into expansion of fluid within the pore space, that will further pressure the formation, because the system is already pressured, is already closed, the space is not enough. Now you are now increasing the volume, so it will further pressure the formation. A typical example of such scenario is hydrocarbon generation and maturation. I'm not going to take so much time talking about this, but when you are talking about maturation, let me give you an example. When you have your kerosene being transformed into gas, catalytic cracking of liquid hydrocarbon into gas is a typical example of what we are talking about. Liquid occupies lesser space than gas. So if your liquid hydrocarbon or if gas is being generated in almost a closed system that already have a content in it that is pressured, and you are now having catalytic cracking of hydrocarbon now to gas, then that will further pressure the formation. That is a major secondary mechanism that we have. All other mechanisms, secondary mechanisms, have been researched to say, okay, they are also means of overpressure, they also constitute increase in pressure, but their impact is not that much. Take, for example, clay diagenesis. A typical example is your smectite to illite transformation. And during this process, the clay band water is being released into the pore space. This will increase the pressure, but not that much like when you have hydrocarbon generation and gas generation. Aquathermal expansion is another example. When you talk about aquathermal example, they said when you heat your water above 4 degrees centigrade, there's usually an increase in volume. And our oil wells, our basins, we know that hydrocarbon that we are targeting, hydrocarbon kitchen is usually between 80 degree and 120 degree. So definitely there will be an increase in volume. And that is why aquathermal expansion can be part of the origin of overpressure, but the effect is infinitesimal. We've talked about osmosis, transmission of fluid from one point to another. But I want to just emphasize on lateral transfer. Lateral transfer, according to Yardley, Eta, Sobrick, they help us look into it, and they said you can be having your overpressure being generated in a particular reservoir, and if you now have a fault linking one reservoir to the other, a fault that is not sealing, so that it gives room for hydraulic communication. The pressure being generated down beneath this reservoir A may be transferred to reservoir B. So, symptoms or factors that should result into overpressure may not be present around reservoir B, but reservoir A, because reservoir A is in hydraulic communication with reservoir B, that will lead into overpressuring of reservoir B. Also, if you have a reservoir that is, what is it called? If you have a reservoir that is at a deeper end connecting another reservoir at a shallower end, there's hydraulic communication between a deeping reservoir. That's the term I was trying to get the other time. If you have a deeping reservoir and it's being charged from the deeper end, but it's in hydraulic communication with the shallower end of it. If you are not drilling through the shallow end of that reservoir, because you feel like you don't want to produce water, you want to locate your well optimally, if you don't look at pressure from the angle of the deeper end of the reservoir, you will be estimating the overlying weight, the overburden weight at the shallower end, and using that one to compute your overpressure. That will lead to you underestimating the formation pressure. Okay. I think I'm getting close to the end of this presentation. Qualitative pore pressure prediction. Qualitative pore pressure prediction. How can we know if we are drilling through an overpressure zone? I've mentioned some of these things, but I just want to reiterate them. We can't do a quantitative pore pressure prediction. That one requires a software and a model, but qualitatively we can know. Take, for example, when I was talking about the cuttings, the picture, the slide I have on cuttings, drill cuttings, I mentioned that if you have splitting shapes, which goes under cuttings morphology, if you have splitting shapes, it suggests to me that I'm drilling through overpressure zone and I'm having more or less underbalanced drilling. Another way we can qualitatively predict pressure is when we are having gain in our pits. Regularly, the volume of mud that you pump into the annulus is given, plus or minus is what you are expecting back into your mud pit. If I pump 10 liters of mud into the annulus, into the wellbore, and I'm having 14 liters back as a return, then I know something is adding to it. Something is resulting into the increase, and this will suggest to me that there's a kick, there's influx of the formation fluid into my wellbore, and that is the reason why I'm having a gain in my pit. If I'm having losses in my pit, the pit volume, if I look at my pit volume, if I pump 10 liters and what gets to the surface is 5 liters, the remaining 5 liters, where is it? Most likely, I've fractured the formation and I've started having losses. And if nothing is done about that, I'll take a kick and the next thing may be blowout. Flow rate. When your fluid is being diluted, I'm talking about when you're having a gain in the mud pit, even before you get to the mud pit. When your fluid is being diluted, it means it becomes lighter, low density, lighter than what you are sending down. Of course, that will increase the flow rate because the density is now low, and as a result of the low density, you suddenly notice a sharp increase in the flow rate. All things being equal, there are other things that can affect my flow rate. But if all those other parameters are constant and I'm noticing an increase in flow rate, then kick is suspected. Please don't forget that I'm talking about quantitative pore pressure prediction, not qualitative. Pump pressure. The pressure needed to circulate bottoms up. If I'm having a kick, I will have less density, then I will need lesser pump pressure to circulate up. That will suggest to me that, oh, there's something happening. Volume of my cuttings. If I begin to have increase in volume on the shade shaker, if I go to the shade shaker and I've been monitoring the volume of cuttings that I've been having per time, and all of a sudden I notice a sharp increase, or even if it's a gradual increase in the cuttings, it's suggesting to me that why I'm still drilling the same volume of O, I'm still making the same size of O. So why the increase in what is coming out? It's suggesting that to me that there's a washout. And you know, when you're having a washout most likely, apart from mechanical impact of the drill string, washout most likely can be a good indicator of underbalanced drilling. So that will call my attention to look at other parameters. Another thing that can help me to qualitatively know, which is one of the indices that I love so much, is my gas information. Your total gas, your connection gas, and your trip gas. Your total gas, you are talking about the gas in the formation. As we are drilling through the hole, let me just quickly go to that slide that have the drill bit. Okay, this is the slide I'm talking about. This particular, if I'm drilling through this particular formation, as I'm drilling through it, I'm opening, you can see that, okay, the pore spaces, if the pore spaces is a gas reservoir, if this reservoir or this interval have gas trapped in it, as I'm drilling through it, I'm releasing that gas out. The gas that I will be releasing out will be the gas that are within this space that my drill bit is drilling through, not the ones at this far end, because my mud weight will have sealed all these ones from coming in. But if all of a sudden there's an increase in the volume of gas that I'm having at the surface, when we stop to make connection, if we stop to make connection, at that point in time, there will not be circulation of mud, meaning the effect of the kinetic energy of the mud will be reduced, what we call the ECD, equivalent circulating density. When the kinetic energy of the mud has been reduced during connection, if there's an increase in the volume of gas that is getting to my person belly, then I will note that and put my eyes on it. If I'm making another connection, if the gas increase or the gas is constant, I know that I'm trending towards hydrostatic drilling. The mud weight I have in hole is almost equal to the formation pressure or less than the formation pressure. That is the reason why each time the effect of the ECD, equivalent circulating density, is removed, and all I'm having is the equivalent static density, these gas are able to come to come in hole. When you continue drilling and you are pumping again and you initiate kinetic energy into it, at that point in time, it keep it in hole. When I'm saying this, it suggests to me that I'm drilling close to under balance or already under balance. Same goes for trip gas. When I'm making a trip, a wiper trip, maybe you have drilled 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, and you want to be sure that you are not experiencing a tight hole. So you take a wiper trip to see, to check that, okay, the size of the hole you are drilling is the same thing, not that you are just drilling through and you now assume that you have successfully drilled the well only for you to want to come out of hole, you can't come out of hole. So when I'm having a wiper trip, at that point in time, my pump will off. Any pump of gas is usually an indicator of something abnormal in hole. Okay, qualitatively, the last thing I want to talk about is reversal in porosity log trend. Velocity increases with depth. Transit time decreases with depth. So instead of an increasing trend of velocity, if I have a scenario where consistently I'm seeing an increasing trend, and all of a sudden I get to a particular formation, I'm drilling through a new formation, I get to a particular depth, and I notice a change in trend, reversal. Instead of increasing in trend, I now notice a reduction with depth. Then I know this is an undercompacted interval, and definitely is overpressure. So if I look at my density log, my sonic log, resistivity log, other factors can affect resistivity. So hydrocarbon effect can affect resistivity, salinity can affect resistivity. So when you are using resistivity, you must be careful. But if I'm looking at my sonic, my density, they are trend in shale, not in sand. So I want to look at what is the trend in shale of my sonic, my density. If I look at the trend, it has been increasing for density, velocity increasing, sonic reducing, and all of a sudden I notice a reversal. This reversal can be an indication of abnormal pressure. These are the qualitative way of knowing abnormal pressure zones. At this point in time, I would love to give room for question and answer and feedback, comment, remarks,